Deciding the best city builder games. Now that is difficult. But with my passion and nearly 30 plus years of playing various titles in this genre, I think I can come up with a pretty solid all-time best city builder list. There is a blurred line of what is considered a city builder, and I've tried my best to focus on the aspects and the features which would highlight and class these games as city builders. So based on my experience, I think I've got a good list, and I would be very interested to hear your opinions at the end of the video. Make sure to stick around because I do finish with my ultimate tier list of best city builder games, which I'm sure will be controversial, but it is purely based on my opinion. Let's just jump into it. The first game on our list is Caesar 3, developed in 1998 by Impressions Game, and it was a groundbreaking release. The 2D graphics at the time were unrivaled across city builder games, particularly. The mechanics were easy to set up but complex to master, and after 20 plus years of being released, it has continued to be a classic among city builders. And the latest project, which is called Augustus, has released more content, more features to this game. Set in the Roman Empire, Caesar 3 challenges you to build thriving cities full of bustling streets, grand temples, vital infrastructure, to build a romantic and, I guess, revolutionary Roman Empire. You'll manage everything from housing to food, production to entertainment to defense. Placing residential, commercial, industry zones needs to be really carefully considered in every single part of the campaign to keep your citizens happy. It is hyper important to make sure your citizens are based around markets and temples and entertainment to make sure they can evolve and grow as a civilization. You need to set up your production zones, particularly around growing crops and managing water supply, building efficient road networks and roadblocks to keep the city running smoothly. The feature that makes this game so unique is the culture and entertainment. When I think about a Roman city, I think about the theatres, the bathhouses, the gladiatorial arenas. This is a core aspect of this game which makes it feel Roman. You have citizens expecting luxury and satisfying their cultural needs through these houses. And the final product is a flourishing city of Roman culture and entertainment. But it's not just about the peace and prosperity. You'll also need to defend your city against the barbarian invasions. You need to build fortifications. You need to maintain a strong military full of those symbolic red Roman shields to secure the emperor's borders. And it has a very exciting kind of campaign in Caesar 3, which offers numerous amount of challenges and missions where you have to balance the growth of your city, the economy and trade of that region, but also the security, making every single decision very, very critical, and that changes through each individual campaign mission. So in summary, this game is an all-time classic, and considering it still has a loyal fan base after 20 plus years, is purely a testament to its impact on city builders. With the addition of the Augustus community and the modding around that, it brings so much quality of life changes and new features to the game. It is still around to this day, and it absolutely is highly recommended and a strong game for this list in my opinion. The next game on our list is a lesser known title than the previous, named Knights and Merchants, released in 1998 by Topware Interactive, and it's probably on this list because I have a biased opinion, and I believe it was my first ever city builder strategy title that I played very, very young as I was a kid. So in Knights and Merchants, you manage a medieval village from the ground up. You build farms, bakeries, mines, setting up the basic production to sustain your civilization and grow your population, and to prepare yourselves for either an expansion, an invasion, or to defend your borders. This game shines particularly in its deep resource management and production chains. Every single item, from bread to weapons and armor, needs to be produced, and there's a finite of resources on every single map. So it's hyper important to manage your workers efficiently, or your population will starve, people will begin to die, and you won't be able to set yourself up for the ongoing military campaigns, which will definitely arise. But it's not just about the city building. It does have a military side to the game, so you have to train and command knights and archers and foot soldiers, and each individual soldier has to be their armor and weaponry has to be produced by your town. So you progress from the basics of spears and bows to iron armor and swords and horseback cavalry to protect your village ultimately from the invading armies. So you'll face off through different elements, from barbarians to nobles, expanding your territory and your strategies and tactics. This game comes with a challenging single player campaign full of varied missions, starting out from tutorials to manage and learn the basics of resource management, then progressing ever so slightly into more intense warfare. Knights and Merchants at the time impresses with its own charming kind of pixel art 2D style, which you can probably already sense from the Caesar 3 demonstration in the previous section, is a very strong part of its identity. From the atmosphere, the music, you do feel like you are building a medieval city, and it's quite nice sometimes to step back and just see things just working, from your farmers transporting wheat to the mills, to the bakeries, to the weaponry being produced. It is a really amazing game, casual friendly experience. So in summary, this game is an old classic, came out at the same time as Caesar 3, which combines kind of a nice challenge between city building, resource management and military. The next game on our list is Pharaoh. Developed and released in 1999 by the same studios of Caesar 3, Impression Games. And that shows through the graphics, the systems, the complexity of resource management. But it's not developed in the Roman times. As you see from the graphics, it has transported you into Egypt. I love this game as it enhanced various features which were lacking in Caesar 3, improving the quality of life and some new additional features which were missing in Caesar 3. It has been recently redeveloped in 2024, and it's a game that I have personally released onto my channel called Pharaoh: A New Era. In Pharaoh, you start as a humble, small settlement, learning the basics of resource management, how to keep your populace happy, and you grow it, you develop it into a sprawling Egyptian city, all while trying to navigate the challenges of a finite amount of resource like grain and stone and gold. Your city will rely upon agriculture, trade, religion, and monuments to thrive and stand out as a monument to the Egyptian times. You need to plant and harvest crops, which is much more challenging, I find, in Pharaoh, as you have to navigate the fertility of the Nile. Building granaries and keeping all your citizens fed is a particular challenge for the game. You need to set up marketplaces, crafting workshops to create pottery and furniture. You need to build temples, many temples, to keep your gods happy, or you'll feel the wrath of their displeasement, and it is a key part of the game. The highlight for me in the game is the wonders, which is definitely missing out at Caesar 3. You have to build the iconic wonders of the Egyptian civilization, including pyramids, sphinxes, majestic temples buried in caverns and caves. These massive projects require a lot of resource and careful planning. That includes the stone, the labor, and ultimately a lot of patience. But life in ancient Egypt, if you know anything about the history, isn't all smooth sailing. You'll face many floods, fires, famines, invasions. So yes, you would like to just develop a a city and have it all smooth sailing. That isn't the case in Pharaoh. You have to balance the growth of your city alongside the health of your populace, the security of your borders, and the diplomacy and appeasement of the gods. Finally, Pharaoh does bring a new life to particular elements of the game compared to Season 3 around entertainment. You can build, organize festivals and religious ceremonies, build marketplaces and different aspects of your city, which does bring a vibrance to the city life, and it gives you a really strong feeling when you just sometimes sit back, not building and planning and growing your civilization, just see it unfold and see how people interact with your city. In summary, this game is another all-time classic, which does show having been redeveloped and the active community around this particular game, and absolutely worth a play. Next up on our list is Stronghold. Released in 2001 by Firefly Studios, this particular game has been redefined with several sequels since. However, the original holds a strong place in my heart and on my list for city builders. Stronghold is based in medieval England, and it combines aspects of city building alongside real-time strategy and warfare. So you're not just managing resources and keeping your villagers happy, you're building mighty castles and defending them against relenting enemies. Start by laying out your village. You'll set up farms and build mills to grind down the wheat into flour and bake bread, and set up blacksmiths to create weaponry for your army. All by supporting the growth of your population and your army. You need to figure out how you're going to navigate the finite amount of resources available from food, wood, stone, iron, etc. Managing your economy is also important. So how are you going to get gold? Are you going to rely upon trade? Are you going to tax your citizens, which will then really annoy them and potentially leave your kingdom? So managing that aspect is a key part of the game. The strongest and the most unique and the most special to me in this game is the castle building. The heart of the game is about building a fortress, from designing walls and towers and gates and moats to withstand numerous enemy attacks, from siege equipment to bannermen, scaling the walls and archers. Every single defensive structure matters, so how you build it is super, super important. And that's a complexity of the game, and that is why I always come back to this title, because you can always do it differently and more efficiently. Once you've built your mighty fortress, let the siege begin. It's time to command troops that hopefully you have equipped with the finest weaponry, from archers to swordmen to siege engines, to hold the line. And the battle scenes in this game are so special and unique. And I'm not too sure what's my favourite bit, the offensive or the defensive side, but both require proper strategy and timing and a smart use of resources. Using an example, are you going to use moats and archers to withstand waves of spearmen and potentially laddermen scaling your walls? Or are you going to rely upon oil to set light with fire arrows? Are you going to use trebuchets and catapults to knock down the walls and charge straight into the gap and the breach to take the castle from the ultimate kind of noble or liege of that town? So many things to consider as part of the battle sequence, which I love about this game. And finally, to stitch and blend all these amazing features together, there is a rich single-player campaign set within the confines and the regions of medieval England, which begins with the basics of the game and tutorials, and then ultimately navigating to more complex warfare and city building kind of aspects of the game. Furthermore, there is a free build mode, so you can challenge yourself against skirmish modes, have no military challenges, and just build the mightiest castle ever. So many options to dive into. In summary, this game is probably less on the city building side, and it does have a heavy aspect of military to it, but because of the resource management and the keeping your population is critical to this game, it has to be on this list. That, including the building your own castle and your fortifications and testing that against various different kind of challenges, is the perfect combination in my eyes, and well worthy on this list. The next game on our list is Simcity 4, and shouldn't be a major surprise for passionate city builders who have been playing and following this genre for a very long time. Released and developed in 2003 by EA, SimCity is the original modern time city builder and has inspired numerous titles since, and one of those is on this list. No spoilers. It's a game that I've probably put in at least 100 plus hours, because it's a real good combination of building a massive modern city with the complexity of industry, residential, commercial, but also is very casual friendly. And I feel like it's a game that you can just easily just jump into, play an hour, and that's about it, which I find is perfect for city builders. In SimCity 4, you have to navigate, plan, build, and manage a sprawling city from the ground up. Design your city layouts from roads to public transport, and then set out zoning areas, which include residential, commercial, industry, developing these areas and figuring out what's the best place to place them. So, as an example, you probably don't want to put industry next to residential because there is a negative side effect to that. But you do want to put commercial so they grow and develop with each other. And if you navigate that complexity, you can watch your population grow and grow and grow. What really I feel like sets SimCity 4 apart and the originals from there is the simulation engine behind it. You're not just putting random buildings everywhere and just that's going to be the final design. No. You put the roads down, you set up the basic infrastructure in place, and then you need to figure out what is the best way to develop that particular zone. If it's residential, how are you going to make sure that these people are serviced properly? So from public services to policing, better access to healthcare and education, these are the things you have to navigate. But also, like, you have to consider in this traffic flow. If you just have one straight road with all the primary buildings on it, you're going to cause massive bottlenecks, and that's going to impact your city's health and its growth, and you're going to have lots of crime and people not getting their education. Everything needs to be carefully considered, and you may be required to take out the bulldozer and knock down a complete part of your city because it needs to be redeveloped with new challenges and planning for the future of growth of the city. I find one of the coolest features of the game is the regional play system. You can build like multiple interconnected cities in a region, and that is where you can start sharing resources with each other. So if you've got one particular region which is really strong in industry, you can then use that to trade with another region which might be focused on commercial, as an example. You can share power and transit networks. It gives a whole new dimension to, I'm not just thinking about this one city, I'm thinking about maybe my regional city or my neighbour, as an example. And all this needs to be taken into consideration. If you have built your sprawling city and it looks perfect and you've saved the game, why not? And I feel like this was a cool feature in SimCity is disasters. You'll have the ability to trigger a major disaster, and you can test to see if your city can survive. So why not throw in an earthquake or a major fire or an alien attack? You can set many different challenges and disasters on your town to see how your economy can survive, and will you get lots of political challenges and your civilization might vote out your campaign and elect somebody new. These are the interesting challenges and plot twists. So in summary, this game is a really casual, friendly, modern day city builder, which I feel like is the perfect combination to me, with really cool, unique twists in regards to like regional play and disasters. So a real easy pick for this list. Banished. Developed and released in 2014 by Shining Rock Software, this game takes a new twist to the city building genre, taking you away from building monolithic structures and towns to focusing on your citizens and their needs and their desires. You'll have a small town and you'll need to carefully craft and grow that settlement. There'll be an emphasis and a careful consideration around juggling resources and the management of those resources. Are you going to expand? Are you going to invite more people to your town? Can you feed them? Can you keep them warm? Or are you going to be a little bit more safe because the looming threat of winter will potentially wipe out your town? These are the careful considerations in Banished. You start the game with a small group of exiled travelers who need to build a new settlement from scratch. There is no crazy kind of magic or technology. It's just raw. You need to tame nature, so you need to build lumber camps, farming, fishing to keep your people alive. You'll have to gather this wood. You need to hunt animals, farm the land, mine for resources. Consider, and this is the first time I've found this challenge, is you have to get each person shelter and warmth. If your populace doesn't have firewood during winter, they aren't going to survive. So every single resource matters, and the seasonal changes that come around from summer to winter to spring will drastically change your strategy and what you do. The worst thing you can do is try to expand your settlement because you feel you've got enough resources when you are just about to hit winter, because winter can drastically impact your harvest. Your population will need to stay warm, otherwise you're going to go from a thriving town into a ghost town very quickly. Managing your population is also key. Managing birth rates, their health, their happiness, and every single aspect of that comes down to your choices. Are you going to overwork your population and they could get injured, fall ill, and not be able to sustain a particular resource? These are the decisions you have to make in this game. It's more focused, I say. It's not really a city builder. It is a population builder. Because if you neglect your food storage and famine will strike, you're done. And this is where this interesting part of Banished comes in. Unlike kind of other games like Caesar 3 and Pharaoh before that, you don't need to do zoning like SimCity 4, or you don't need to connect buildings like Caesar 3 through roads. You have to carefully place your buildings, and then your town will organically grow around those kind of priorities. And placing them in the wrong areas can have catastrophic consequences to the growth of the town. So in summary, this is a new twist on the city building genre. It's challenging, complex, needs careful consideration and planning, or you're going to kill your town. There is much stronger focus in this game than any other ones on this list around survival. It has a nice mix of kind of casual gameplay but really complex decision making, which makes it a worthy contender for this list. One of my all-time favorite games on this list, City Skylines. Developed and released in 2015 by Paradox, with a more recent sequel, City Skylines 2, released in 2023. These games, I'm trying to think the kind of combination of hours that I've put in, but it has to at least be 500 plus hours, probably more than that if I compare them on Steam. And I've completed numerous amount of playthroughs on each of these titles. This game, in my opinion, revolutionized the city building landscape. It is introduced complex kind of transport networks from trains to planes to underground tram networks, building proper suburban towns, profiteering from trade and industry, servicing your population through police, fire, healthcare, education, and seeing it grow from like a very small town to a thriving city. It is one of the most satisfying feelings when you've spent hundreds of hours building a modern city and seeing everything just work seamlessly. No traffic, people are getting to work properly. It is easily one of my favourite games. So what is City Skylines outside of that kind of brief intro? It is a modern city building game. You start with a blank plot of land, a brief connection from the highway, and you need to build a small town. So that will involve roads, zoning, certain services, so like water, electric, garbage collection, then introducing, after a few kind of, I guess, evolutions of your town, you'll then advance into transport networks and more and more and more. So it's not just about placing buildings and hoping for the best. This is the first game where if you place things in the wrong area and your town continues to grow, you're going to have a lot of problems. I'm just going to use an example. You might start a small town with a single connection to the highway. That's fine initially because, you know, it can handle that type of kind of traffic flow. But once your population is maybe 5,000 people, which is quite a lot, that's going to become a major bottleneck. So then access to service buildings will be degraded. Access to other areas of the city will be non-existent. And this is where the challenge of City Skylines comes into it. How are you going to make sure your town can grow and develop, but also not staying completely restricted based on the legacy of your old town, the way it looks? So playing the game for 5 hours versus 200 hours, your town will look drastically different. And that is the excitement of City Skylines. Let's talk about zoning and infrastructure for a second. This is where it takes a lot of inspiration from Simcity. I briefly referenced it. This game has been inspired by Simcity. It has to be. And that comes down to the zoning. The zoning is very similar. You have various different zoning types from residential, commercial, and industry. And you control what type. So you might have basic residential, which is homes, to high density residential, which is skyscrapers, and that's the same for all of them. And you have to manage those demands, and you'll have different gauges within the game where you might have a surge of commercial, and you need to place them within your town to service your overall population the best way. What you don't want to do is put loads of commercial in an area where there is no residential, because there's no customers to service those buildings. And vice versa with industry. If you've got lots of industry but no commercial, they've got no products to sell. These are all the challenges when it comes to zoning and infrastructure, to keep everything running smoothly. Combining that with efficient road networks, connecting power grids, keeping the water flowing and the wastewater going. So make sure you don't put wastewater in your drinking water, or you're going to have a very, very, very big problem. This is part of the excitement in City Skylines. What sets, I think, City Skylines apart from kind of what I call SimCity 4 and those type of games, and the complexity is just the pure depth of the game. You can manage your budgets to each different service area. You can take out loans. You can tax differently. You can put more money into disaster services if your region is known to take lots of forest fires. You'll have to manage public transport. So how much money are you going to invest into public transport? If you're only going to invest like 25% of your budget, you'll have less trains on the tracks. But you invest loads of money, you'll have more trains, but then that will put a lot of pressure on your rail network. It all comes around, every single dial has to be optimized based on the size and the complexity of your town. And not doing that, you're going to spend unnecessary money, you're going to really annoy your populace, and you won't grow. Another amazing feature and contribution to City Skylines is the community. I've not said that too much in a lot of these games, but I think with City Skylines, for me anyway, City Skylines was the base of it, and that consists of maybe 25 to 30% of the game. There is so much modding in this particular genre of game of City Skylines. The community is super, super active, and for me anyway, once I completed, I'd say, my first region of City Skylines in the playthrough, adding mods just completely changed the game for me. So a lot of City Skylines is based in North America. There's a modding pack to create a UK focused, British focused region. There's new maps, there is quality of life changes, so you can actually manage the individual lanes on roads so traffic flows better. These are all the little additions to the game that keeps it fresh, and there's hundreds of thousands of contributors to that. The modding scene easily is one of the highlights of this particular game. And lastly, and this is more of a kind of content creator kind of feature, but I think it's really nice, is you have tools to just observe the town. So create like really beautiful time lapses. You can just follow a particular citizen from their house to their work, to their local shops, to the school. You could literally spend all your time in City Skylines just observing your town. Like, it's not just micro dots on the map of people. You can focus on an individual person, rename that person as Bob, and follow Bob's life around and see how they go around and navigate your town. It's super interesting. I found it really cool. So in summary, this game is incredible. It's epic. It is amazing. So many adjectives I could use for this game, which just wouldn't do it justice. It is easily one of the best city builders and one of my favorites of all time. The next game on our list is Tropico 6, released in 2019 by Limbic Entertainment. This takes another twist on the city builder. So you are transported onto a tropical island and you have to grow a new country. You are the El Presidente and you're in charge of a amazing Caribbean escape. And your goal is to build, manage and lead the island and your nation across different eras. So colonial times to modern day, you're trying to figure out how to keep each individual person on that island happy. And you've got various events that keeps that fresh. So you might have a rebellion, or you might have some type of random event like a disease or lack of tourism. It is a beautiful game to look at, but interesting when it comes to the challenges. So let's just jump into the city building aspect for a second. You'll construct houses, you'll build like farms to keep your civilization fed. You'll build factories to produce different industry types to keep your, not just your population happy, but inviting new people to your island. You'll have to carefully plan tourist areas around the island. So, you don't want to build your tourism in the center of the island. You do it on a glistening yellow beach, white beach, and have the blue sky, like the blue sky and the blue ocean around. That's what you want to build your tourism around. So you have to plan kind of where you're going to build things, and you can connect various parts of the islands through bridges, set up trade routes. That's a key part of it. And then the other side is resources. You need to manage your resources and plan your infrastructure carefully. You need to juggle the demands of your citizens and the factions and foreign powers. You might get, an island nearby demanding more trade or more resources from you that you can't sustain, and they might invade you and stuff like that. So the city building resource management is a key part of this game. The highlight and the uniqueness of this game is the human politics. So you are El Presidente, you join this island, and you can decide where you want to take your nation. Do you want to have a mixture between kind of challenging laws that might be somewhat dictatorial, or do you want to rig the election so you'll never be voted out of office? Do you want to spy on the rivals who are coming against you? Do you want to become the iron-fisted leader of the town, or do you want to be a peace-loving kind of president? These are the challenges, and you'll have various laws you can pass, various schemes you can plan, which actually the only game on this list which really gives you a political play on the city builder, and depending on your route, depends on how successful you'll be as the president of the island. Another key part of this game is keeping an eye on different factions, and there's many factions within the game. You'll have people who are very focused on military, so they like aggression, military investment. You'll have like capitalists who want growth and trade and lots of profits. You'll have religious leaders who want more churches and more ceremonies. There is loads of different aspects, and these are the groups that you have to keep an eye on, because if you annoy one of them over an extended period of time, they may start to create an uprising and make a pledge to go for office and run against you, and they might have a lot of backing from the population, and then you get voted out and your game is over. So you have to be very careful not to ignore them, otherwise you're going to have like protests and coups and much worse. Lastly, and a lovely part of this game is if you want to go on easy modes and have a more relaxing play style outside of the craziness of the campaign, you can just customize things easily. So you can customize your palace, you can trial different kind of laws to see how they play out. You can go in sandbox mode and just kind of with unlimited resources try and build the most amazing Caribbean island. It is completely up to you. You can go crazy, you can do like military stuff. So I like the idea of the sandboxing and just kind of the customization of the game. So in summary, this game is a real fresh twist on the city builder, where you juggle unique political policies, managing different factions. The humour of that combined with kind of the unique art style of the game makes it a really cool game. So a really strong contender for the list. The 9th game on the list is Anno 1800. Released in 2019 by Ubisoft. There's a raft of sequels in this one, but 1800 was personally my favourite. I put hundreds of hours into many different titles of Anno, with a new one releasing this year, which is based in Rome, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. And this game has been a favourite of mine for a long time, and plenty of different additions to the game, which make it every single title brings new challenges, plenty of quality of life changes as well. So, this title was a worthy one to include in this, and these are the reasons why. So firstly, it's set in the industrial age of the 1800s. Makes sense by the title. So it puts you in charge of a vast empire. You are catapulted onto a single island, and you're expected to expand your population on the island from a small settlement into a global trading powerhouse. So it's a game that kind of mixes a lot of the games we've already mentioned on the list, from complex resource management, the logistics of kind of connecting all that together through roads, where you're going to put your production, where you're going to put your core residential area, what service buildings are you going to build to keep your population happy, how are you going to juggle that with a bit of military and trade. It's a real good kind of dose of different features across various games, which come together in a really amazing kind of playthrough experience. So you start out ultimately in this game developing the basics of production. So you'll probably most likely start with fish and timber to start out, to keep things flowing, keep your population happy, but then you'll quickly scale up, as in the Industrial Revolution, to steel and canned food and luxury goods. Your population and your citizens will evolve from farmers to engineers, and with that their needs will change. So you'll need more luxury goods, and you might not even have the resources available on your island, so you might need to trade some of those in. So you'll need to develop your island in real complex ways to keep your population to grow and their needs to grow with it. As referenced in the previous section around kind of resource management, with that resource management comes trade. And I think trade in Anno is one of the most important aspects to get right, and quite quickly. You'll be managing multiple islands, so you might, as an example, have a plethora of luxury goods on your island, but it might be lacking farming material and food, or spices on another island. You'll need to set up another settlement, so you'll send a ship over there with some basic materials and some citizens, and then you'll build out in that new land, and then you'll need to trade from that island to your original island and vice versa, setting up a real complex network of trade. And then you might scale out to another island and another island and another island, and you might have 5 settlements spread out across the world, and you're trading between all of them with different types of resources. If that isn't kind of the way you want to go around it, you could trade with your rivals on the map. So you'll have like the AI, they will set out, but some of them might be aggressive and they might not want to trade with you. So you'll have different challenges and complexity of it when you explore the islands and you uncover these new lands and the rare resources on those islands. How are you going to go about it? Are you going to trade, or are you going to take it for yourself? What makes, I think, Anno really impressive to city builders is the visualizations. I think every single game that Anno has released is super impressive visually. Like, your cities feel alive with the markets bustling, selling materials to citizens, to factories roaring away, or ships arriving into your harbour selling precious cargo. It doesn't just feel like a city builder. It feels like the city's alive, and it's important to keep things efficient and stuff like that. But for me, it's also super important to make it look visually appealing, so then I can step away and have like 5 minutes just to observe the amazing kind of city I've built. Lastly, in this game, as mentioned around trade, an important aspect of Anno 1800 is the diplomacy and warfare. You could just play through the game and be a diplomacy wizard and just trade and build alliances and such. Most likely, one of those alliances will break up, and then you need to think about how are you going to complete the game, and usually that is through warfare. So you can intimidate your rivals, build a mighty navy to take over and force them into a stalemate. So you might want to surround an island or one of your rivals through the water, so they can't trade, so they can't take valuable goods, so they can't grow, and then a civilization and their citizens will become frustrated because of the lack of growth. These are the things that you need to consider. So in summary, this game is the perfect combination, and it's really good from a replay value perspective. You need to be a trade wizard, you need to understand diplomacy and resource management, how to keep your population happy, but also all that combined into a graphically excellent kind of experience, and really, really satisfying when you finally complete that first ever playthrough of the game. The last and most modern game on our list is Manor Lords, released in 2024 by a single developer named Greg the Legend. And this quickly became a favourite among city builders. I follow a lot of city builders on YouTube myself, and this blew up. Everybody was uploading content, how best to plan the game, to navigate the complex systems within it. Quickly I realised this is a game which, if it continues on this pathway, and it is, from what I'm seeing, it will be an easy favourite on lots of people's lists. I was hesitant about uploading this and putting this in the number 10 slot because it is early access still, and there's many features still in development. But once you've played the game and you love city builders, it is an instant favourite for me anyway, because it combines various systems that you look for in a city builder, from resource management to complex trading systems to population needs and organic growth of the populace to warfare, all that kind of stuff. It's what you want. So that's one aspect why it's on this list. The other one is the art style. It's a beautifully mesmerizing game. It is eye-catching. It's set in the medieval times, so you'll build a small hamlet into a prosperous town. It is super satisfying. But before going to my biased opinions on it, what is Manor Lords all about? So you start out as a minor lord with a handful of peasants and a patch in wilderness. You set out your basic settlement, and then from there you build homes, various workshops and farms, hopefully building and growing those initial like settlers is the word to use, and they will need more things like religion and beer, of course, and different types of food sources in their marketplaces. This is all kind of then building up into maybe establishing trade routes, and it's all realistic to the time that it's set in the 1400s. So it's got medieval twist to it, and the kind of resources of the time. Because it is set in the 1400s of Europe, there is various things to consider in that kind of time period. So the mechanics of the game and the tactical combat and the resource or what I call feudal management. So the lords and the manors and the castle, the settlement, all these things need to be carefully considered. So you don't just want to just randomly place buildings. You need to carefully plan, like, how am I going to make sure that if I've got an area of the map which is really kind of, I guess, fertile for crops, how I'm going to plan that, and how I'm going to make sure that that can be navigated and put into my population. Hopefully that makes sense. Then the other aspect of that, really, when it comes to the economy and the logistics, is the production chain. I referred to it earlier about wood, but every single resource needs to be carefully considered and planned. So if you've got a wood production, you need to make sure the woodcutter is very close to the carpenter, and the carpenter can then trade those goods to a warehouse, and that warehouse can then transport it to new buildings. And then you'll need to make sure the forester hut is nearby so it can regrow the trees, so you don't cut down your whole kind of wood supply. That is just one aspect of kind of supply chain management within the game. And obviously there's many more kind of supply chains to consider, from food to crops, all that kind of stuff. Another key aspect of the game, really, for me, is the military. Although basic at this point in time, you need to build a basic militia and build your defences, equip that army with weaponry. So you need to craft weapons or trade those weapons in. And then when it comes to the actual battle scenes, it is a great experience to see two armies collide together. Although the kind of military aspect of the game is still in early development, and there is a lot of potential to do that. Seeing your knights in massive military kind of attire, so that swords and shields and plate armor, charging into a battle and facing off, and just seeing that play out is mesmerizing. And the lead developer has already highlighted that there will be a lot more military kind of focus within the game in the future, from like focusing on making sure your archers are in the wood line, so they have a tactical advantage, or your cavalry charging to the back lines and cutting off the forces. There's going to be a lot more focus on the military and the strategization of those military campaigns. So in summary, this game is an incredible addition to the city building genre, and I'm super impressed that this game was developed by one person. The community around it is constantly giving feedback to the developer and making sure new content is regularly developed. So this is one that is on the list already because it is beautifully mesmerizing. The systems within it are very, very complex and what you want from a city builder. But it could be one of the games which instantly goes to the top of everybody's list as their favourite city builder of all time. So very excited to see the updates of this game, and a worthy final contender for this list. Now, before I jump into my final tier list of the 10 games I've just covered right now, I wanted to have some honourable mentions of games that weren't on this list that might be on your list, and I wanted to give some rationale of why they didn't ultimately land in the top 10. And hopefully they make sense. The first honourable mention is RimWorld, developed in 2013. RimWorld is, I'd say, it's more of a character simulator manager, which introduces a lot of aspects of resource management, and you do have to build a settlement, but it's more about exploration, survival, and combat. There's lots of aspects which could constitute as a city builder. So you do build a population, you need to consider kind of crops and feeding your population and building fancy equipment, technology, research, defending against raiders and wild animals. There is a campaign and a story behind it, but because the core focus of the game isn't the city building, it's more the character development and the exploration, I couldn't include it on the list. But it is there is a strong argument for and against, but because of the other games on the list in my top 10 were more focused on the city building and the management of resources, that's why it didn't make it on the list. Another honourable mention, which is very graphically similar to RimWorld, and it's a game that I have played on the channel. If you know about the content uploaded, is Norland, developed in 2024. It is focused on kind of, I'd call it the military and character management. Literally a carbon copy, if you could argue that, to RimWorld. So you have you oversee kind of the family, the characters, managing conflict, the religious tensions between the town, rivalries going on. You know, you got the social tension of cultures, their needs, the potential of the unrest between that. So you do have to manage and build up a population. So there is an element of city building in the game, and there is resource management in the game. But I feel like they are secondary to the primary focus, which is character management. So although, yes, another argument where it could be on the list, it just isn't that strong city building genre game, and the other ones on the list do fall in that category more. Another game on my honourable mentions is Manor Lords. I have to say that slow because it's a tongue twister. This was released in 2024. It's early access at the moment, and we did play through it on the channel. For me, this game feels more like a puzzle game, if I'm honest. So yes, there is a city building element to it. So you place certain buildings on the map and it organically grows around that. You have to navigate certain challenges and cultures. So are you going to focus on the military, religion, trade, education, or kind of capitalism, so production? And you got these distinct cultural differences, or kind of, I guess, population hubs, and they will influence each other. So if you support trade, like, you'll unlock new buildings and benefits, but then letting one of the other ones be neglected. So you have to balance all that, and then, you know, through that organic kind of growth, you'll have more kind of challenges with the population. It will organically grow from there. It's an exciting game, but for me, it just didn't seem like a city builder per se. That came secondary. For me, it was like a puzzle game. I mentioned it a couple of times. It's a puzzle game. So where you put certain buildings and the selection of those buildings will then progress into the new age, and selecting the wrong ones will become a challenge and you get the wrong followers. So that is the primary reason I don't feel this is a traditional city builder in my eyes. There is not much what I'd call city building to it. And yes, there is resource management, but it's more what you're going to place, where you're going to place it, and how you're going to place it. Next game on my list is Workers and Resources, released in 2024, and this is a purely based on my own experience. I haven't played through this game too much, if I'm honest. It does have a lot of strong aspects that you want in a city building game. So you have to build basic infrastructure from roads to homes, managing the economy, getting farming and kind of, I guess, mining, manufacturing, logistics set up, and how you're going to transport all those goods together through kind of what are called the Cold War times. So it's train, truck, etc. There is a lot of realism to it. So there's you know, you do have to manage a budget, but how you're going to manage those resources, the manpower and the time it takes to create. There is that kind of complication, which is the challenge. But for me, because I haven't put that much time into the game, and that might just because of the era it's set in, I'm very much a history buff, and I love the medieval times, the Roman times and such. It just didn't resonate to me as strongly as maybe some of the other ones on the list. So for me, Workers and Resources didn't make it into my top 10. But it is a really cool game, and hopefully I managed to put more time into it this year. Next honourable mention is Frostpunk, developed and released in 2018. So this is set in an alternative time frame where you have to combat the Ice Age. You're in charge of the last city on Earth, and your job is to keep your people happy. It's a cool kind of experiment where the heart of your city is set around a massive generator, and it's the only source of heat, so you have to keep things optimized. Where, you know, do you grow? Do you balance like keeping people happy? Do you add more housing, new resources? And if you go too far and you go through a massive kind of spike of frost, I can't remember. I don't know what the word is, but you could kill off your civilization. So for me, yes, there is the managing resources element to it, but for me, it feels more like a survival game. You could argue it's similar to Banished, and for me, Banished is the better game, in my own opinion. And that's the reason why Frostpunk isn't on my final list, is because I felt I had space for one survival city building game, and I feel like Banished is the better one, I would say. My last honourable mention on the list before I jump into my tiered top 10 is Timberborn. So this is another unique twist on the city building genre. You are a populace of beavers, and it's your job to manage the resourcing of various materials, food production, housing, power, and such. And you can stack buildings on top of each other, create really dynamic infrastructure and efficient colonies and such. The water system is probably the unique part of this, and the water mechanics. So naturally, being a beaver, you have to build dams and storing water and controlling rivers and such. And if you don't do that efficiently, you could actually cause major problems for your town. And you do have different factions to navigate with, different traits, different buildings, and how you play the game. So yes, it's very similar in regards to other games on the list. There's a lot of survival to it, and kind of the industrial planning of a populace. For me, it just isn't as strong as the other games on the list. It is what I'd call a traditional city builder, but I prefer the other games in my top 10, and that is just purely a personal opinion of mine. So we're at the latter stages of the video, and maybe the most exciting for some of you is how did I score my top 10 and where did they stack overall. So I judge each game differently, and that's comprised of what's the replay value of each title, what's the overall complexity and gameplay of the game itself, the graphics and the unique art direction, the difficulty, and how buggy was it? Was it really buggy? Was it completely polished? And my scores on the screen right now reflect my overall thoughts on these games. The top spot for me, City Skylines. In my opinion, one of the most perfectly crafted city builders, from complex systems to graphic art style to the natural flow and organicness of a city. It is everything that I would want in a city builder, and I understand that is a biased opinion, but that's what I'm looking for. When I'm looking to buy a city builder, that is the game I'm looking for, where it's simple in principle, it's complex, it doesn't have a ceiling, it's amazing just to look at sometimes and step away. But, you know, other games on this list which might not score so highly, it is still on my top 10 list. Like, being on the top 10 itself is a feat upon itself, based on some of the honourable mentions. There's some other games that I've not even mentioned. So yeah, being in the top 10 is amazing, but that's how I scored it overall. I'll be very, very interested to see people's opinions and where they may differ. So if you do have other games that you'd say that they should have absolutely been on this list, make sure to drop a comment. If you agree or you'd score them differently, let me know. This is like a very much a back and forth, and I love to hear different people's different opinions on what games they resonate with the most when it comes to city builders. I'd be tempted to do other tier lists. Yes, we're focused on city builders. I might do one focused on RPGs or warfare. That would have a completely different list. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this video, and I hope you have too. If you have, make sure to drop a like. If you want more of this content, or you want to see maybe some of the playthroughs of these games on the channel, I upload a couple of times a week on city builders strategies. We're currently playing through Stronghold, so that might be of interest, and we're going to probably play through Caesar Free again because I just love that game. But overall, thank you for watching if you've made it this far, and yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye for now.